And now I want to welcome my second guest, Paul Verdu. He's the Vice President of Sales and Marketing at 10th and Blake, Miller Coors' import and craft division. Hey, Paul.
How are you? Thanks for
Good.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man. So tell me, you're the first one. You're the very first Vice President of Sales and Marketing at 10th and Blake. It seems like, you know, when you've got enough craft brands that it might be time to have somebody to, you know, sell and market them.
Yeah, and obviously 10th and Blake has been doing that for a long time, but brought me in just to sort of bring a little bit more capability and sort of make sure our team is operating efficiently and that we're sort of doing all the right things from a brand and from a sales standpoint.
Tell me a little bit about that focus that you're bringing and like where you want to take these brands and, you know, help build them.
Yeah, so Pete Marino, the head of 10th and Blake, made a speech last couple weeks ago here in California, and he did hit on the fact that, you know, brands are still super important. With all the selection and choices out there, we believe that the brands that stand out and stand for something and engage with consumers are going to be the ones that survive. And that's my primary background is brand building. So I'll be partnering with each of the 4 craft partners and even our import brands. We have a team on that as well. And we'll be making sure that we're creating brands that can stand for something and stand out in the marketplace. So when a consumer's standing at the shelf trying to make a choice, you know, we're there and present and hopefully breaking the tie.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you're coming at this with a very unique perspective because you stepped in at St. Archer after Josh Landon left, and you were the acting. Was it president at St. Archer?
I was the interim president of St. Archer just for a few months as Josh was leaving, and there was a little bit of a void at the leadership level. Just asked me to come in and work on a strategic plan with them and help work with the team that was in place and work on a leadership transition plan. I tell people it's the best thing that happened to me. So before taking the role I have now over all of 10th and Blake sales and marketing, to be on the ground floor at one of our craft partners, it gave me a perspective from that side of things. Because when we partner with these brands, we got to make sure that they stay who they are and their culture stays intact. And I got to see that from the ground level. So now that I'm sort of overseeing all of our partners, I can actually make sure that we're sensitive to that and not just sort of bringing a sort of Miller Coors approach and saying, here's how you will do things. You know, we have to be sensitive to that, and I've seen it. So
I was going to say, how do you sort of foster that? You know, how do you sort of keep that individuality while also taking those lessons that you've learned at St. Archer and applying those to the, you know, Hop Valley and Revolver and Terrapin?
So the beauty is we partnered with great brands, with great teams in place, and we've kept those teams in place. There's been some transition at St. Archer, as we said, but the rest of the teams are still intact, and we keep it that way. And so the whole balancing act that we live is how do we keep those cultures intact, make sure that those guys are operating sort of independently and building their brands, and they have their own sales force, and they're doing all the right things. The beauty is now we can tap into some of the resources that Miller Coors provides, whether it be access to chain activity, insights, data analytics, all those things that maybe even capital for investment and growth. So all those things that these guys on their own might not have had access to. So they operate as they always have, but now with a little bit more oomph behind them.
Among those 4 breweries, how competitive is it for the resources that Miller Coors can provide them?
No, it is kind of fun balancing that because they are really competitive, and each of them wants to be the next big thing and the most successful, which is what you want, right? Mm-hmm. So we have to constantly balance that, and I'm trying to create a one team, one dream kind of philosophy so that we all work together as a portfolio and kind of learn from each other. At the same time, we don't want to lose that hunger and drive that they each have independently. So it's another balancing act that we have to keep in place. And how we do that is, again, the same people are running those breweries as the day we bought them. And now there's a new president at St. Archer. He comes from the Miller Coors side, but he's been working on that business for a long time, and he's done a great job.
And that new president is?
Brad Nadal.
Okay.
He's come from a marketing background. He's been in the beer business for years. But he went into St. Archer, and he understands what they're all about and lives and breathes the culture from day one. So he's been a good fit there.
I've been out there. It's a very cool brewery.
Yeah.
So it's a nice experience.
Yeah.
They make some flavorful beers, despite what you might read in Men's Journal.
Yeah. So look, I mean, I think Pete said this too last week or 2 weeks ago. The price of entry in this business today is great beer. Mm-hmm. And so all of our partners make great beer. how you can stand out and stand above is by building the brand and doing some other things.
Tell me a little bit about that brand building and sort of where you want to take, St. Archer. I mean, as far as Terrapin or Revolver, and expanding that footprint, the geographic footprint.
Okay, so there's two things there. So from a brand perspective, I've been asked what's the success? How do you build a successful brand in craft? And I actually think there is no one answer. So you're not going to see us do a cookie cutter approach and do the same thing on all 4 partners. It's not going to happen. We're going to take a different approach, one that's right for that brewery. And so you'll see different things. From a geographic expansion standpoint, our first priority, and it always will be our first priority, is strengthen our core markets. So we really don't want to get too far from home if we're not winning at home. And so the beauty right now is all of our brands are overachieving and outselling and outgrowing all of their competitive set in their core markets, and that's number one priority. So from there, you can build from a strong base. And so as we head into 2018, St. Archer is really staying put in California and some of the western markets, Arizona, Vegas, and in the Northwest, now Hawaii, and so on. There might be some potential to press into a couple of new markets late in the year in 2018 just to get the brand seeded and started. Terrapin is expanding to Wisconsin and Michigan, and Hot Valley is now entering Colorado.
Okay.
And Revolver, New Mexico to start, and maybe a few other places, but we'll see.
So you've got 4 partners there. Do you see gaps in your portfolio at this point that you guys are looking to sort of fill, or what are those gaps, and how do you approach that?
We're definitely not necessarily done in the partnering with breweries. However, we're not desperate either. We believe we have 4 great partners. The obvious gap, if you just look at it, is on a map. It's geographic. And so if we see something that fits geographically and that's interesting and strong and healthy and growing and has lots of upside, that's a potential way to go. The other thing when we look at getting involved with another partner would be perhaps the style and or focus of their brewery that's different than what we have today. So if we do partner with another brewer, it would definitely be incremental in some way, shape, or form to what we're doing today to add to the portfolio as opposed to just, add something just because.
Any announcements you want to make?
No, sir. Honestly, no. There's nothing imminent, actually.
I also wanted to ask you, though, we talked a little bit beforehand about Soul, and that's not going to touch the 10th and Blake, but you've worked with Constellation in the past. What sort of knowledge is the company sort of gleaning from you on that brand and how to, build that up?
Well, first of all, Miller Coors is full of really talented people, so I don't know how much they need my opinion, but I have participated in a couple of meetings. I'm really optimistic about Soul, and I know that the brand has been around for a while, and people have, and Heineken and others have tried to get it kick-started. I think the approach that I'm seeing coming out of the Miller Coors team is going to be really strong, exceptional, sort of tying it back to what it stands for in Mexico and bringing it to light in the U.S. As you said, it's not a 10th and Blake brand, so I don't participate in those conversations daily, but I have been involved a little bit just because of my experience with Constellation. But I think doing something different that connects Soul to its background back in Mexico and making it stand out in the U.S., it's not an easy challenge, but it can be done. And I'm pretty confident that they're going to crack the code.
Your other import brands, how actively are you guys looking to push those in the coming year?
Well, our number one priority from an import perspective is Peroni. And Peroni continues to have really strong trends. Nationally, it's up about 7% this year, which is great. It does have a smaller base than, say, who we consider our competitive set, like Stella. However, it's actually growth accelerating right now. And our approach has been really to focus on core markets where we believe imports will do well and a brand like Peroni will do well. So we've invested in New York and Miami, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and many other markets. And every year you're going to see now markets that sort of have been invested in for a while tip over into like becoming more aggressive and spanning wider into those markets. So New York and Miami, for example. And at the same time, you'll have markets that we've been investing for a couple of years where we're still in that build mode or create mode. And then there's going to be always a couple of new markets that we begin investing in. And so there's always this cycle. And eventually we hope that Peroni can continue to grow and become a national player in the import space.
Right on. Yeah. Well, Paul, I want to thank you for taking the time out, man. I really
My pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we'll catch up over a beer here pretty
Absolutely.
soon.
Yep.
So,
nice to meet you. Thanks.
Yeah, nice to meet you.